All right, right now on More in the Morning, we're shining a light on our deaf community. September, if you didn't know, is Deaf Awareness Month.
That's right, and joining us this morning is Executive Director Amy Turner and Lisa Mayand, deaf mentor and interpreter Helena from Sally J. Pimentel Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center in Fort Myers. Good morning to everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited to be here.
So September, and this was something that I did not actually know, it's a Deaf Awareness Month. And exactly, this is something I know we're kind of on the back end here of September, but we're still trying to spread awareness of what's going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. And since September is Deaf Awareness Month, we're so excited to be here today and spread the word that we're in Fort Myers local. We're here for the people, for the community to serve that need.
Yeah, speaking of, can you tell us a little bit more about the Hearing Center and what resources you provide to that community?
Absolutely, absolutely. We've been in Fort Myers at the center for over 38 years, and we serve all of the Southwest Florida community.
The presence here in Southwest Florida, you guys, you mentioned you're here in Fort Myers. Is there a large deaf community here in the Southwest Florida area, maybe even specifically in Fort Myers?
Yes, as a matter of fact, according to the census, we have over 60,000 deaf and hard of hearing people in the Southwest Florida area. Now, most of those are hard of hearing, but we do have several hundred deaf in the local area.
Sure.
And our agency does provide resources and information to really improve the quality of their life.
Right, can you tell us a little bit about those resources? I know that you also perhaps offer sign language classes for those of us who maybe want to learn.
Yes, we do. I'm going to allow our deaf mentor, Lisa Mayand, to talk about that. She is a wonderful addition to our agency. She's actually been there over 19 years.
Wow.
She is a very important liaison to the community. She actually goes into the deaf education program in the schools. She goes in and she reads books to the children. She teaches them sign language and really helps them learn to communicate. She's a very important part of our agency. So I'm going to let her talk a little bit about those classes.
Absolutely.
Okay, good morning. Thank you for having me here. I'm really a deaf mentor for education for deaf and hard of hearing children and teenagers and adults so they can have equal access and communication with everyone. It's really important to understand the message. I'm the mentor in the schools, but we also work with families and children and families that have deaf children. Suppose a child is born deaf and you're hearing and you don't know what to do. You can come to our center and learn sign language so you can work with your child and be able to communicate with your child. So we service from children all the way up to adults, deaf and hard of hearing, so we're all the same and we're all included in the communication. We have ASL classes. The families can come in and learn with the children how to sign. So it's really important that we do that so that everyone can communicate with each other.
I can imagine too, for parents, it's quite overwhelming when you come in and you're trying to learn some of this. So if you could almost speak to that as well, I mean, is it part of the process just getting parents, to understand what's going on and just kind of getting involved?
Really, for parents to realize, well, when they have a child that's born deaf, they say, well, how am I going to raise this child? What am I going to do? How am I going to talk with them? And how are they going to be able to meet other people? How are they going to be asked questions? How are they going to drive a car? How are they going to go to college? And yes, they can do all of that. Just because they can't hear doesn't mean they can't do that. And so we teach the sign language so that the parents aren't overwhelmed, the children aren't overwhelmed, and the children don't feel isolated, that there's no barriers set up. So we encourage everyone to come in, from children to adults, to learn how to communicate. That is really an important key to ASL, American Sign Language, and English communication, equal access. It's very important to have an interpreter too. Interpreting services, according to the Americans with Disabilities Act, you have to have a qualified interpreter to come in and be able to interpret.
Absolutely. That's so wonderful. And what great information. We are going to have you guys back around next hour, correct?
Yes.
So we have plenty more questions. This has been very enlightening. I want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thanks for having us.
Well, wonderful. Stick around. Don't go anywhere. And we'll be right back here after this break.
Well, right now on More in the Morning, we're shining a light on our deaf community. September, if you didn't know, is Deaf Awareness Month.
That's right, and joining us this morning is Executive Director Amy Turner, Lisa Myhand, deaf mentor and interpreter Helena from Sally J. Pimentel Deaf and Hard of Hearing Center here in Fort Myers. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm so glad that you could come in and tell us a little bit more about the center. Can you, for those of us who maybe don't have as much experience within the community, tell us about some of the resources that are provided by the center?
Absolutely, absolutely. We provide all sorts of classes for American Sign Language. We teach baby sign language, family sign language, and we offer these sign language classes as a free program. So we welcome anyone that's part of the family of a deaf and hard of hearing child. We welcome grandparents, aunts, uncles, the whole family, siblings. That's what we encourage. We just really want to encourage being able to communicate with your child.
I feel as though it's really something that's overlooked here in Southwest Florida because we had talked about it when you guys came on during our 6 o'clock show, and that there is a large community here for those individuals that might be hard of hearing, those individuals that might be deaf. I mean, exactly how many people are affected by this in Southwest Florida?
That's correct. According to the census, there's about 60,000 deaf and hard of hearing individuals in the Southwest Florida area. Now, of course, most of those are hard of hearing, but we do have several hundred deaf people in our local area.
Wow, and you guys help out not just with those who are deaf, but you mentioned last hour working with people who maybe have a child that is, well, you have a hearing set of parents and maybe a child that can't hear. Tell us a little bit about what you do specifically working with these families and everyone from young little nuggets up to adults.
Yes. If you have a parent and you have a child, if a parent has a child that's born deaf, and things like that, there's services that can be provided to help with the communication. There can be a cochlear implant. They can have interpreters. Our agency has a lot of resources. They can come in here and find out. We'll be happy to teach them and give them a lot of information about the different things, and also in providing interpreters and things like that. Because they become very isolated. We don't want deaf folks to become isolated. We want the children to grow up, and we want them to be functioning adults where they're asking questions and things like that. Like in my family, nobody signed. But I became part of a big family. It's called the Deaf family, and that's with a capital D because that means culturally ingrained. When somebody is a small d, that means it's more medically they're deaf or they become deaf later in life. But a large D means they're very strong, passionate family. That's the deaf family that and culturally they identify with deaf. The small d is more for medical purposes and things like that, physical things, but the large D is for culturally they're ingrained in the deaf community.
When we're speaking about parents specifically, it can be a little overwhelming to come into maybe an environment like this. It could be your child that could be affected by this. It could be somebody that they know and they want to learn. Is that something that you experience as well? Maybe some hesitation with parents coming in?
Really, in my experience in meeting many parents who are hearing, they all think they will grow up to become hearing. The deaf people deaf babies will be born and they'll grow up and they'll hear eventually, but that's not how it is. They grow up and they are still deaf. So we really encourage them to learn how to communicate with them every day through the school and at home with the family. It's really important to have that communication, and then the parents will feel more comfortable and connected with the child, and the child will feel more connected to the family. Because if the communication is missing, it really hurts the child. They grow up very frustrated and they don't know how to do things. So the training has to start when they're really young and teach them how to go out in the world, how to graduate from school. You want them to graduate from college, from high school, from college, go out and get a job. And so they're ready to face anything in life that they encounter.
That's wonderful. The education, the advocacy from this center, obviously very important. I want to thank you all for the work that you do. If you guys want to, you guys also do classes, lots of different resources. You can visit our website. We'll have their website up for you if you'd like to find some more information. Ladies, thank you so much again for coming in. I appreciate it. Stick around. We'll be right back after the break.